When Yahweh speaks, he is most likely giving directions to the individual. He is pointing us in the direction which he would have us to walk. Those directions are complete, but not like we think. They are in themselves complete until the next word is given. We are then given the opportunity to either walk in faith or let the word lay dormant. The word that is given is important to fulfilling a larger picture. You have been given a portion of that picture. It is just like a puzzle that needs to be put together. It takes a long or short according to how individuals add to it. Just note though, the word that is given or sent will accomplish that which it was sent to. Isaiah says this, so shall my words be that goes forth from my mouth. It shall not return to me void, but it shall accomplish what I please. It shall prosper in the thing for which I sent it. In today's lesson, we will see Abraham continuing on his walk of faith in order to fulfill Yahweh's larger picture. I'm Dr. Ray, and welcome to this week's Hosea International Speaks. Abram's first steps into the land Yahweh was giving him took him to a place called Shechem, where it is very possible that he met Melchizedek. And then he went to a place between Bethel and Ai. Each place had significant importance in his life, and we spoke of those in the previous sessions. Abram would be continued to move south, or as the Hebrew says it, he journeyed toward the Negev. Negev is a term meaning to be parched. So he was probably walking into parched land, which also means south. It was a land south of Bethel and Ai, which was dry and arid. The Negev is located somewhere between Kadesh and Shur. It was at this time in history that the first of three major famines would hit the land of Canaan. The first would occur during Abram's times. The second would occur during the time of Isaac, and we learned what Isaac did. He stayed in the land, and yet he still prospered there. The third would come during Jacob's time, even though he would not experience the major brunt of the famine that would last 7 years, because he would be in Egypt, just like where his grandfather went, and he would be taken care of by his son Joseph, who preceded him some 20 to 22, 23 years earlier. It is in Egypt where he would obtain a lot of his wealth, or should I say, a lot of the wealth would be added to him. This wealth, that is given to Abram, this wealth would come through the fear of the Egyptians that realized they were dealing with a man of Yahweh whose hand was upon Abram. Abram would begin a season of deception in which he would tell those he met, or that the wife that he had was his sister. So it was a half lie, but yet it was still half truth. He would say that Sarah was his sister. Why would Abraham lie about Sarah being his sister and not his wife? He was entering into a land to which he was not directed by Yahweh. Now his trust turned to survival instincts, the same survival instincts that Adam and Eve used just after disobeying Yahweh. To be truthful, Sarah was his half-sister. She was the daughter of Terah, Abram's father, but she had a different mother. You can see that in Genesis chapter 20 and verse 12. So in a way, he wasn't lying, but was trying to stay alive, not trusting Yahweh to protect him and his household, whether in the will or out of the will of Yahweh. Why would Abram think of such a story? Well, in the Middle Eastern civilization, it was common for a man to kill another man just to have his wife. And Abram probably knew of that custom. He probably experienced it at some time in his life. And according to scripture, Sarah must have been a very beautiful woman, even at her age. As Abram put it, you are a fair woman to look upon. You can see that in Genesis chapter 12, verse 11, and the second half of that. That word fair means to be very beautiful. And Sarah would have to have been between the age of 70 and 75. But in all of this, their dishonesty still brought hardships on those with whom they came in contact. Abram was still learning to trust Yahweh in his walk through the land that was given to him. He was learning to live by faith. Walking by faith is a process. Scripture says, if you have faith as a mustard seed. Now, let's look at this. A mustard seed faith is the smallest or the least of all the seeds. But when it grows to be the size of a tree, which birds can now land on. You can see that in Matthew chapter 13 and verse 31. Abram's faith would have to grow the same way that tree grew. Abram was going to learn how to live by faith and believe that whatever Yahweh has said, it would come to pass. He would have to learn the Yahweh kind of faith, and we've heard that time and time again. The same faith that is in Yahweh is the same faith that is in us who believe in his word. The same faith that Yahweh used to create. Abram must now learn that faith is put into action by his words. The same way Abraham put his words into action and it produced for him is the same way we must put into action with our words. It too will begin to produce for us. Once we all know the will of Yahweh, it is then time to put action to the word that was spoken. It is time to put feet to the word spoken. It is time to start walking out the spoken word. Now, the phrase spoken word in the Greek is the word rhema, and it means God speaks word or the spoken word. How we obtain that same faith is in Yahweh. It lies in each person that is dormant. When an individual is born again, it is then activated. And from this point, it is up to the individual to grow that faith that was activated, or if you don't, it will just lie there or lay there doing nothing. Romans 12:3 says this: God has dealt to each one a measure of faith. The phrase to each one is dealing with each individual on the face of the earth. Every man who decides, every man is dealt faith. It's just lying dormant in them until it is activated. Each man, woman, child that is near and hears those words, it's within them. Now, it just has to be activated through the new birth. Then it says, each one has been given a measure, a certain amount. The Greek word here is the word metron. The word measure, and it means an instrument for measuring. It also means a certain amount or quantity. That means you and I are the instruments that are being used to deal out faith. And however large or small the capacity of the vessel is determined by you and I. Abraham would be the vessel Yahweh would use to place his faith into. However, how Abraham used that faith would be left up to him. But now notice, if we was to read Hebrews chapter 11 It continues by saying, by faith, Abraham obeyed. By faith, he dwelt in the land. By faith, when he was tested, offered up Isaac. In other words, Abraham learned to walk by faith that was planted in him into a vessel that was chosen by Yahweh. You and I are Yahweh's chosen vessel of today. And that same faith is in us to accomplish his word. There is nothing that we cannot accomplish when we walk like Abraham throughout the land Yahweh is given or has given to us. We will continue Abraham's walk or journey next week, a journey that will continue today. That journey is still continuing today, even through us and in our lives. And if you enjoyed this week's teaching, hit the like button. If you want to be notified every time we go live, then hit the subscribe button, probably right about there. And if you have a question and you want to, or if you'd like to write to me, you can write at Hosea International at yahoo.com or Hosea INT Speaks at gmail.com. I'm Dr. Ray, and I'll see you next week on Hosea International Speaks.